is trying to eliminate the fear of failure and trying to get acquainted with the understanding that this process is going to be very, very difficult and very challenging, and it's rarely going to occur or happen the way that we plan it.
Welcome to Insights into Success. We're with your host Paul Dodds. We hope to educate, inspire and motivate you to achieve your own personal success. We talk to guests from all around the world from a variety of walks of life to hear the realities of their own journey to success. What challenges have they faced? How have they coped with failure? And what have been the keys or will be the keys to their own success? In our Read to Succeed interviews, we talk books that have inspired our guests, and for some, they share their secrets to marketing success. Join us as we give you insights into success. Welcome to Insights into Success, where today a special guest is Jose Berlanga, all the way from America. Now, whereabouts in America do you live these days, Jose?
I am in Houston, Texas, the energy capital of the world.
Now, I'm interested to talk to Jose because he has had a very, shall we say, up and down experience as an entrepreneur, lots of ups and quite a few downs as well. And I've got no doubt that through that experience, you've learned an awful lot. But I'm just wondering if you could maybe take me back in time, because when I read your bio, when you were a young child, you had an accident. And I just would like to know from you to what extent you think that's actually impacted on your life. And I'm just wondering, reflecting now, if you hadn't had that experience, do you think you would have achieved what you've achieved so far in your life?
That is a very good question, because I ask that question to myself quite often. The accident that I experienced at the age of 4 redirected my life completely. It took my life in a different direction in every way possible, not just the physical and the hospitalization that followed, the immediate urgent care that I experienced, and the subsequent years that I invested in so much time in and out of hospitals and recovery and reconstructive surgeries, but it molded who I am today, from my identity, my personality, my objectives in life. The speed in which I grew up and matured was overnight. Perhaps the number one change that it created was the immediate need to grow up, to turn into an adult and begin to understand things that no 4-year-old should ever have to understand. But many of us do. Many of us experience those type of tragedies in which you are forced to ignore childhood as you knew it, as you understood it, forget games and fun and all the things that come together with childhood, and depart into a new reality. And that was mine. How it molded me is, other than it turned me into a very mature, aware person. I would say that's
Right.
a big word. It made me aware of my surroundings, of the feelings and emotions of the people around me, especially my family. It made me understand a little more about the world in many aspects. Survival instincts, not only my personal survival issues, but the financial survival instincts that my family, particularly my father, had to endure in order to navigate through these difficult challenges, because we didn't have the financial means to assist with the impact that this accident caused. The other one was a personality that I often wonder where I would have ended up had I been as motivated, had I been as hungry, as inspired to improve my way of life. Would I have had to fight so much for the things that I achieved and the things that I've accomplished? Would they have come more naturally, or would I have found activities that came more natural to my personality? Because of those experiences, I had to acquire and adapt a personality that was probably not natural to me.
Right.
like becoming more of a people person and having to earn uh, the trust and the likes of others and the understanding of others. So it made me more of an extroverted personality than an introverted, and it really, to answer the question, it turned my world upside down in more ways than I can think.
And so, just without going into too much detail, you had an accident as a child where you got badly burnt. So,
Yes,
so quite a bit of your body was burnt.
yes, 100% of my body was in face was burned. I was literally a charcoal when I came out of this explosion.
Wow.
But a good percentage, close to 80% of my body was burned in 80-degree. I'm sorry, 80% third-degree burns, which was
Wow.
very challenging because obviously once you get to a third-degree burns, your cells die. There's deformities, and that skin doesn't grow. And when it happens so young, the challenges of you growing and that skin being expanded and rejuvenated
Mm,
to allow you to grow is very difficult. So that was one of the biggest challenges, and the reason why I had to have so many surgeries, one after the other, just to accommodate for the development of my body. And so a lot of reconstructive, a lot of skin grafts, as some of the areas that were only 1 or 2 degree first or second degree burns, as they healed, they started using some of those as transplants to start moving skin around in my body and allowing it to heal and to grow. So that was a very tiring process throughout my whole childhood. This was a process that went on for 10 or so years until I stopped growing, eventually until I was a teenager. And that process never finishes, of course, that the process of healing. But at some point I felt like I didn't need it for reconstructive purposes. At some point it became more cosmetic. And
right.
at that point I just decided to stop the process and move on with my life. I was worn out with going
Yeah.
in and out of hospitals and going through recovery.
Yeah, understandable. The interesting in what you're saying there, though, is the fact that you have become more extroverted. It'd be totally understandable through what you've been through that you become very introverted. But rather than going within yourself, you went the other way. You did the exact opposite than what you'd expect, and you've pushed out and become very extroverted.
Yes, and that's, I've rarely made that connection or even thought about it, but you have a very interesting point. Most people, when they experience something that physically affects them,
Mm,
emotionally impacts them, they
mm,
crawl under a rock, they become more introverted, and they don't want to expose themselves or interact with the public, with the world.
yeah.
They hide, and they somewhat detach themselves from the social world. I did the opposite. Rarely does this happen. Strangely does this happen, but this became more of a challenge to me. I don't know why. I don't know if I was born with that strength, without inner um, strength to just convert all of that pain into my ability to want to earn the the social aspects of my life, which I didn't want to lose. All of the sudden, instead of hiding and perhaps walking away from the world, I did the contrary, the complete opposite, which
Mm,
was to show people that I could be normal, that I was not afraid of how I looked or what had happened to me, and that I was not as affected as people thought that I was. So I saw it as a need to go back. Perhaps uh, I was born under circumstances, happy circumstances, perhaps, and I didn't want to lose those. I wanted to get my life back, and I fought for it. It wasn't easy. It was a challenge every single day of my life because people looked at me differently, and they treated me differently, and my objective, my purpose was to be treated as one more kid, as a
Yep.
normal person, and
Yep.
it became part of my perhaps the beginning, the roots of my challenges and my road to success. From that point on, I began a journey of trying to improve myself and being better, and being eventually not only an equal, but perhaps exceeding my own expectations, and becoming an important part of society in as many ways as I could.
Do you think that in your journey to get accepted by others, that maybe subconsciously the strategy was to be outgoing? Because if you're outgoing, people might then be attracted to your personality and ignore any sort of physical evidence of the burns that you've suffered. Whereas if you became very introverted, then people might be more inclined to notice maybe some of the evidence of the burns that you've had.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know how it began. Even I think my mother herself was concerned about kids making fun of me, about people and the public uh, staring at me. I grew up in the '70s, where diplomacy and political correctness does not exist. Every single person that and of course my scars looked much worse when I was a kid. They were very, very obvious, and people would every day just come up to me and ask me and get on and basically in my business and interrogate me,
Mm.
or make fun of you or talk behind your back, and at the point that you make is very, very important. I wanted to enforce this attitude of helping people ignore what they were looking at.
Mm. Mm.
And I did
Absolutely.
it via my charm, my personality, um, by being funny, by being charismatic. So I would diffuse people really looking at the way that my appearance represented. And soon enough, after a few seconds or a few minutes of meeting people, eventually they would stop that subject and move on to deeper in other parts of our relationship. And I develop this ability to create relationships and to get along with people. I think I started it as a need, and it just built into a very, very intense ability for me to create friendships and to be liked by others. And I enjoyed that. So
Mm.
before you know it, I didn't see my issues, my appearance as a problem. And when I ignored it, I helped other people do the same thing. I
Yeah.
tell this to others: whenever you focus on your problems, on your issues, on your appearance, on what you think others perceive about you, you're enforcing it, you're reinforcing the problem, you're making it obvious. If you ignore it, others will ignore it with you.
Mm.
So
Absolutely. So tell me
that
about your entrepreneurial journey, because it seems like it's a very interesting one. I wonder if you could just walk us through briefly, you know, your different sequence, the different steps in your journey, and what the key lessons were in each of the different
yes,
business
the
opportunities that
different,
you undertook.
absolutely, the different stages, which were a very,
Mm.
very difficult journey. I associate my life by all means with a very challenging career, and I often tell people who think that entrepreneurship or any career, whether it's obtaining a degree or getting through high school, getting through the climbing up the corporate ladder, who may think that it should be easier. I try to often explain that no, it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be excruciating, and you're supposed to get comfortable with the pain that it requires to succeed. So success is difficult. Period. I don't care who you are. I don't care how you look at it, but I began to experience pain, and difficulties and objections and setbacks from such an early age that they became kind of a pattern, a normal way of life for me. So when my career began, it's almost as if I was used to it. I expected it and I
Mm,
saw it as something very normal.
right.
From my even learning difficulties, because not only from due to my accident, but learning was difficult for me. I was very ADD. I was very distracted. I had a lot of anxiety and a number of other issues that made it very difficult. But the biggest issue is that I was in and out of school. I interrupted my studies quite often,
Mm,
and getting back and getting caught up with school was very difficult on top of the other aspects of my limitations. So I had to try harder, and trying harder became part of my journey. This is something that I preach. It is not meant to be easy. You're not supposed to reach success status overnight, or it's not supposed to just come because of all the stars aligned in the right direction. Yes, that has to happen too. We need luck. We need the assistance of the universe, but you have to do your part. And so my entrepreneurship journey began accidentally from a very young age. I saw the examples of people that I admired, particularly my father. He went on his own, started a business, and I saw the level of effort and the level of his work ethics, his discipline, the amount of energy that he put into his activities. And that was a great example. That was an amazing beginning for my career. So that when the time came to start a business, I had a lot of experience of just doing small things, unofficially buying and selling things, and becoming a wheeler and a dealer, and always trying to transact at any level. And the social skills and my ability to sell and my ability to get along with others was very helpful. So
mm,
uh, soon enough, without getting, as you said, into a lot of detail on the individual industries, I lost the fear of starting a business, which is something
right.
that a lot of people face. So in my opinion, the first step into entrepreneurship is trying to eliminate the fear of failure and trying to get acquainted with the understanding that this process is going to be very, very difficult and very challenging, and it's rarely going to occur or happen the way that we plan it. And we all need to understand that it's unrealistic to think that your activities are going to always happen in a linear fashion, and that success is going to happen quickly or consistently, because it never does. It rarely does. I even even now I discuss this very often, that when you are on your path to improving your career, it it doesn't have, even if it's slow, even if it takes years, sometimes you're going to go backwards, sometimes you're going to go forward. And as long as there's more positive steps and positive experiences than negatives, sometimes I don't even look at my results within 1 year. I look at them in a longer number of years,
Big
and
picture.
you average your success in a number of years. So anyway, so that was the beginning. Is I when I got to United States as a teenager, I came here very hungry, very ready to work very hard and to look for opportunities. And I began, I found them back then. And I think today, obviously in new technologies, there's always opportunities for entrepreneurs to solve problems, to find things, niche markets that are unattended in the business world. And you just have to open your eyes and begin that journey. So um, it's interesting that I see success much more differently than a lot of people. I don't see it as confusing. I see it and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I see it much binary. It's, do you want it or do you not want it? Number one.
Right.
The first step to become a successful person is understanding whether you want to be successful or not. And from that, there's a few other questions that you need to ask yourself. What do you identify, or what do you understand success to be? Because you don't have to be wealthy or financially successful in order to achieve happiness. So you have to come up with what it is that it means to you. What does this success look like for you? Is it having a family? Is it owning your time? Is it having financial freedom? Is it finding activities that you enjoy? So one of those initial questions is not to follow the format that everybody else has to follow, not to put a number to success, not to put one face in order to achieve your happiness. Everybody has to find what it means to him or her, and then start that journey. So that is one of the early stages or steps in achieving anything in your life, is understanding, how do you perceive life? What it is, what does it mean to you, and what is important to you? So yeah. I mean, we're not all the same, and I avoid giving advice, because giving advice is a very big responsibility. You're assuming that someone else wants to follow your same pattern or journey, or that sees the world in a similar way that you do. I like to tell stories. I like to tell some of my experiences of what I had to do and how I had to do it in order to achieve some of the things that I've done. But it doesn't mean that everybody has to follow those same steps, because we are all made completely different. We look for different things in life, and there are different things that make us different, or proud, or excited. So another important step in again in your career, in entrepreneurship, or in success, is to and this is a big one, understanding why you want it. Once you identified what it is that you want in life and what it is that makes you happy, you have to also, I've made the mistake of working hard and focusing only on the money, only on the outcome, only on the results, instead of understanding and answering that to myself. Why do I want what I want? Do I want this title? Do I want this amount of money? Do I want this amount of freedom? And what do I plan to do with it? Who do I want to help? What is my purpose? This has become more of a popular objective in people's minds, to understand your purpose. I've made that, this is a newer trend, and I'm happy it's been developed in a lot of awareness in our new era, because for many years I worked very hard, and I was blinded by the results rather than by the purpose. I think we need to change that. A lot of us, and not just focus in what am I getting out of this transaction, out of this deal, out of this business, out of this relationship, and understand and change that psychology a little bit into, what am I contributing with? What am I doing, and why am I doing it? And what difference am I making in the work, in the efforts that I'm experiencing through my activities? And then, of course, there's another very important one, which once we go through the elemental steps of having a goal, perhaps the biggest one, if you understand that you want to be successful and that you understand what success looks like, and once you have a purpose, you have to admit and identify, what are you willing to put up with to obtain those results? This perhaps is the biggest question that young people are not willing to answer. What type of sacrifices? I know I want to achieve this goal. I know I want to get here in life and accomplish a certain list of things. but am I willing to match the efforts and the sacrifice that is required to obtain those goals? That is the part that is not always matched by people. We think that we want something and then it's supposed to happen just because we thought of it or because it's meant to happen. And no, you're supposed to go get it and match your sacrifice, your effort, your intensity, your discipline, and the pain that goes together, just like athletes have to put up with certain, endure certain level of pain in order to achieve things in repetition, and then add it to a number of exercises that will eventually compound into a better life. So there's a number of steps, and some of us really don't understand the sequence of events that take place. And by the way, it's okay not to want, again, the same, or to want to invest your life becoming uh, a person that you don't necessarily wish to be. You just have to be honest with yourself and know that if you want certain things, they will require an amount of effort. And if you don't put those two together, then your chances start decreasing exponentially.
So tell me, Jose, like, what was your first industry that you got into and met with success, and what happened? What were your lessons from that experience?
My first experience was the import export of machinery for the oil and petrochemical industry. When I got to the U.S. in Houston being an oil and gas petrochemical heavy industry related city, I had a lot of contacts in Mexico and Latin America through my family, where I began that there was no internet, there was no information. And a lot of these plants that were built back in the Industrial Revolution, they needed maintenance. So they needed a purchasing agent in the US to help them find these parts, machinery, and from every level. And I began to help them, assist people to provide for maintenance for their plants and for their factories. And that became a very lucrative business when I was very young. Fascinating, to the point that I thought I was going to retire from that business. From my late teens, in my early 20s, this business grew. I did very well. And I thought that was going to be my career. I loved the business. I enjoyed it and I understood it. I was bicultural. I understood the Latin American world as well as the American mentality of negotiating and building strategies and businesses. And it did very well. But sooner or later, the economy in Mexico and Latin America hit a speed bump, and they stopped. My clients began to slow their pay from a 30-day pay cycle to a 60 to a 90. And I couldn't catch up with my vendors here because I couldn't do the same to my operation in the US. So I started lagging these payments, and little by little, it started getting more and more difficult until they broke me. Essentially, I was not able. So the currency exchanges, economic changes, and then when the business started coming back, there were new technologies. There was more information where my services began to become obsolete. So I was put out of business from becoming a millionaire, a well-off very young person without even understanding how much money I was making at the time and how well I was doing, thinking that I was going to retire in this career. Before you know it, I'm back to square one. I lost my business. I lost my savings. I lost my career, and I had nothing. So that was a very scary time. Was one of perhaps my first major business failure. And I don't call it failure because I didn't quit. This is a way of looking at it. As long as you don't stop and you don't quit, you're not failing. You're just postponing the next round of successful experiences. So I lost everything. And I was forced to start looking at friends, relationships, contacts. finding other ways to start a business. Thankfully, I had so many friends in the industries where little by little I started in getting involved in other in other businesses. So little by little I got into the second one, which something very similar happened. And then the third one, this is incredible. I've had an incredible journey because I've had to start from scratch four or so times when, due to either an economy, a currency exchange, an economic cycle that caught me. Eventually, once I got into real estate, I had one of the most devastating impacts from the financial crisis, where I was over leveraged. I had a very, very large debt with banks, with lenders, that when the market changed, I could not sustain that debt. And but one of my proudest moments and one of my most successful aspects of my career was that I didn't go out of business. I simply used all of our resources to get out of trouble over a period of 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So I never had to go bankrupt. I never had to be in default. I simply had to go through one of the most excruciating periods of my life, just managing the financial crisis and selling assets and giving away assets, because obviously the times where you had to give away things in order to make a sale. So I've had very interesting experiences, both positive and negative, and ultimately you just gain experience and you learn how to prevent and how to improve your chances of getting out of these bad cycles or economic situations.
And so for you now, what do you do these days?
I'm an investor. I'm in real estate. So for the last 2.5 decades, I've been predominantly in real estate. I started a construction company with my brother, a residential construction company by the name of Tricon Homes, that we built from the ground up with very little money. We reinvested all of our earnings back into 2 projects in 4 and 8, and we multiplied them. Took me 10 years or so in other business experiences to acquire enough experience and enough seed capital to start this one. Then it took us another 10 years to build this company, and we turned it from a one little small house back in the 90s into $100+ million a year operation, where we were building 200+ homes a year.
Wow.
Until this crisis came about. And after that crisis, once we survived that event, which it's a very, very long story. I talk a little bit about it in my book, by the way, The Business of Home Building, which recently was published. I talk a lot about those experiences, about how to start the business, how to build the business, not only in residential construction industries, but in any other. Eventually, I began to diversify in real estate. That's been my my industry. Although I dabble in other things in technology, and I invest in another number of other industries. Predominantly, I am in real estate, commercial, residential, land development, land speculating, and that's what I have been doing since the crisis. I learned the lesson and started diversifying a little bit in the real estate world.
Right.
So
so for you, what have been some of the key lessons you've learned from those different business failures that you've had?
Many endless lessons. One of them is don't get too excited when things go well, because it's just a matter of time. The good times, good years don't last forever. That was a lesson number one. When you start doing well, preserve cash, preserve resources. Don't grow too fast. Don't indulge yourself in a better quality of life until you put enough money aside for a rainy day, until you take care of the needs of your business, stabilize it. That's one of the lessons. Most businesses fail in their attempts to grow. Be careful in your growing. It's not, here's another lesson. Once you start a business and stabilize it, it is far from, it's not the same to operate a stable business than a aggressively growing business. And I've always gone in the route of building and growing businesses, but it puts you, when you're growing a business, it puts you in a very vulnerable position. You need more cash, you're hiring, you're reallocating your responsibilities, the positions within the company, you're reassigning, you're shifting, you're moving, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, you're trying to make more resources out of the little ones that you have. And that makes companies very vulnerable. And if a bad economic cycle catches you in a bad moment, in a growing mode, it can be devastating. So that's one of them. Have goals, have a plan, and yes, don't spend your money when you start doing well, and don't assume that it's going to continue that way. Keep learning, keep perfecting, differentiate yourself from the rest. I talk a little bit about this in the book. We all want to enter different segments of the different markets, but the world of entrepreneurship is an extremely competitive game. It's a very difficult game, and somehow you have to do one of two: either outwork your competitors and the rest of the people around you in the same industry, or you have to modernize and innovate and come up with a different way of offering your products and your services. There are few ways of separating yourself from the crowd in the business world. So you have to have a plan. You have to sit down and design the path of success. And how do you plan and intend of being better at whatever it is that you're going to do within an industry? And it's not one big lesson that I've learned and that I discuss is that it's not enough to be good when you're an entrepreneur, when you want to start a business, build a business, go on your own. It's not enough to be good at one thing. Unfortunate, but you can be very good with numbers, not enough. You can be a very good technical person, not enough. You can be a good marketer, not enough. None of the areas. You can be good with legalities or with contracts or with social media. Unfortunately, in today's fast-moving pace of the business world, you have to multiply yourself and understand that a business requires many sectors: sales, operations, marketing, administrative, accounting, legal, design, whatever the industry you are embarking in. And you have to devote enough time to all of your children. Those are your, call them, for an analogy, they're your kids, and they all need attention. You cannot focus too much time and too much passion into one area of your business and ignore the rest, because that's a formula for failure. And unfortunately, you have to study and understand what the requirements of that business are and spend the time to allocate into all the different areas. You can market your business very well, but maybe you're going to fail because you had horrible records in accounting and systems and reporting and information and so on and so forth. You can be very good in your production, but you're awful in your sales and your marketing. So even if you're not very good at all of those activities, you have to surround yourself. You have to understand where you come in, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and then partner up with the right team that can balance and supplement those areas that you're not very good at. So those are some of the very basic Obviously, the business world is so incredibly abundant, and there is so much to learn. I've been an entrepreneur now for 30 plus years, and not a day goes by that I don't keep learning something. So you have to just try to continue innovating, be open-minded, perfect your systems, specialize. Don't try to be all things to all people in any industry, because that's another way to try to expand the wrong way. You have to become an expert at something.
I'm just wondering, and it's probably not so feasible these days to be able to be in one business and be in it for your whole career, because things seem to change so quickly. But I'm just wondering, like, if, say, that first business you had, if things had gone differently and there wasn't the issues that you had, and that you were still in that business to this day, how different do you think you would be? And how would you compare your level of knowledge of what it takes to be successful in business, being through what you have, as opposed to if you didn't have that and you just had that one business and managed to go through that, being successful without having to reinvent yourself as you have?
Yeah, great question. And it's such a cliche that they say that we learn more from our setbacks, from our failures, from adversity than from success. And I do believe that that's the truth. When you start a business, or when you go on a journey and everything goes perfect, it's fun, it's wonderful, but you don't have the same set of skills, and you don't build the same experience and accumulate your ability to solve problems. You don't develop your problem solving skills if you don't face adversity. So let's start with the fact that it is rare for a business not to go through ups and downs and hiccups, and unless it's already a very well established business. And that's never been my case. I've never owned a business that's already an industry leader, or that it's at a level where no economic cycle can really impact it. I've always operated small or medium businesses that do get affected by these type of things. Had I had a smoother ride, and my initial business would have worked out the way that it was originally planned, I would probably not have had the same level of experience on how to solve these problems, how to innovate, how to pivot, how to adjust, how to innovate, how to go from plan A to plan B to plan C. And perhaps I might not be, and this is a reality, I might not be as humble as I am today. I would perhaps
Absolutely.
think, if everything would have gone right for me, I would have thought that I was smarter, better, and quicker than the rest. Had the circumstances been easier for me, perhaps I would think more highly of myself, and I would just think that I'm doing everything perfect and that I'm just that good. And it takes a few punches in the nose to really humble down and to really start understanding that sometimes, even if you do everything perfect and you do your part, life is going to come at you and hit you hard over and over. So I think it really made me a more down to earth person, a more realistic, more humble, more compassionate about the fact that things are not easy. And I think that is part of the journey of life, to deal with those type of experiences. So I don't know. Obviously, my life would have been a lot easier and relaxing, but I am glad that it went this way. Although at the moment, when you run into adversity, it's horrible, and
Yeah, it's
you
tough.
think that it's the end of your life and end of your career.
Yeah.
If you're able to survive it, if you find the strength to go through it, it will feed you with a lot of positivity down the road, and it will give you so much in exchange if you're able to navigate through it.
Yeah.
I you know that I am so realistic now after all of the experiences that I've lived with the fact that nothing comes easy and the life is a constant battle, that I don't pray for problems to go away. I don't pray for things to get easier. I pray to have the patience and the energy that I need in order to resolve the things that I'm faced with every day. That's a more realistic approach. Wake up with the energy, with the attitude and the patience to deal with life. But never expect for problems to go away. That's what we come to this world for. We come here to fight, to battle, to learn, and to experience. So if you don't want any of those things, well, then you're probably going to have a much more boring life and uneventful life. And that's fine too, if that's the way you want to go about it. There's the merry-go-round experience, and then there's a roller coaster experience. So you kind of have to define which one suits you better.
But I think life has a habit, though, that you might choose for your metaphor the roundabout, but it's got a habit. Life's got a habit of throwing you unexpected, and next minute you are on a bit of a roller coaster, even though you didn't want to be on one. You know what I mean? Like the reality of just going through life, living a simple life, and not really having eventful things happen to you is not really very realistic. Whether we like it or not, there's going to be unexpected things happen to you.
I agree so much. And incidentally, many of us that choose some of the more difficult challenges in life, the tougher path to living your life, is because of that, because you don't want to be on a comfortable path, on a comfortable lifestyle, and then be faced with adversity and not know how to deal with it. If you're in the merry-go-round and all of a sudden life throws you something very difficult, you may not know how to handle it. You may be in a state of mind, in a state in a frame of mind where you're not ready. So somehow, some of us crazy people maintain ourselves in a level of discomfort for practice purposes. I think that's been one of my philosophies. I keep looking for new adventures, new businesses, new investments, new responsibilities, new challenges, because I want to maintain myself at some level of discomfort. In the event that more things get thrown out of me, I won't lose my practice. I won't lose my ability to deal with them. That's a very good point. Life has a way of surprising you with unexpected challenges that you never thought were coming your way.
The thing I like about this interview, Jose, is the fact that you're really underscoring the important message for people out there, particularly young people. We're fed very manipulated information on social media and have unrealistic expectations of what it means to be an entrepreneur. You're really underscoring the realities of it all, the challenges that are involved, and that you have to be very resilient in order to succeed. The overnight success pretty much doesn't exist, and if it does happen, it's by accident, and it may well end up being lost in the future anyway. So I really appreciate the authenticity.
You are so right, so accurate with that statement. We over romanticize the process of building a business, of entrepreneurship. We misinterpret what it means, its meaning. No, we feel that once we own a business and once we become entrepreneurs, we own our time, we have freedom, we have success, we'll make money, we own our lives. And it's quite the opposite. All of a sudden, the business owns you, your time, your finances, your soul, your freedom, until you build something. It's the other way around. You serve the business, you provide to that business, you give it all. If you're not willing to do that, it's not going to work. And people who go in expecting it to work right away are the ones that normally will quit very, very fast. They will walk away because they did not expect it to be the opposite of what they assume. And social media, with all of these people promising to make you rich quickly or showing you things that are not real in social media. Everybody's looking at lives that are fake, that are not true, that that are perhaps not the essence of what the businesses really represent, or even personal lives. Everybody's showing the fun aspects of their lives. So the viewer starts thinking that our lives are not matching up to the rest of the world, when it's quite the opposite. That is not the reality of the world. That is not the reality of any activity or any path to success. It is discipline, it is hard work, and it is pain that goes with it. Anybody showing you anything different, it's really just trying to mislead you as to what the reality of life is.
I couldn't agree more. We're just going to wrap this up now, but just want to say, Jose, thank you so much for being so authentic in this interview and really giving us some really good insight into what it's like to be an entrepreneur. But any final comments you'd like to make to end this interview?
Absolutely not. I love your questions. They are deep. They are fun. I love these type of conversations. I really enjoyed being on your show. My book is out. I wrote a book about business that I enjoyed. I didn't necessarily write it to sell a lot of books. It was something that really, really made me feel good. I'm finishing a second book. Hopefully we'll get to talk again when my next book comes out. But I'm really embarking. My final message is to tell all of us to always continue to reinvent yourselves. It doesn't matter what age, what level of your career or stage of your career. Continue to move forward. Continue to search for new adventures in every way, shape, or form. Don't settle down. Life is short, and we need to keep learning and living to the best of our ability. So keep reinventing yourselves.
It's a great way to wrap it up. So thank you very much, Jose. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you're inspirational. And we'll certainly publish the links for your book when the time comes. And I look forward to talking to you in the future when you publish your second book.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Sounds good. Thank you.